America, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I take full responsibility. I am partly responsible for what's happening in America, for what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, for what's happening in New York City. We left Iran, we left Islamic Republic for exactly this reason. Because radical terrorist Muslims took over the country and are literally killing, raping, torturing, and executing innocent people right now as we speak for the past 47 years. And I thought by voting Democrat, liberals, every single year, every single time there was an election, that meant we are going to make America, keep America great. We're going to definitely not negotiate with terrorism. That's exactly what the left media made me believe. And I'm here to say I apologize. I was brainwashed this whole time. It took me over 20 years to realize that Democrats and liberals are the reason this country is the way it is. They're the ones that are okay with the American flag being burned in New York City, that the American flag is okay to be burned. It's part of democracy. It's the most anti-American thing to do. And wishing death upon America is the most anti-American thing you can do. It has nothing to do with democracy. And I'm here to apologize and let my husband know that he was right. He was rara. Gotta let my husband know that he was rara. I don't know why it's so hard to say this. I am here to announce that my husband was rara. It's very painful. I'm here to announce that my husband was right. Oh, that took everything I had. That he was right about everything. That Republicans are the ones that are gonna help make America great again. I also believed that make America great again meant make America white again. That's because the left media wanted me to believe that. I am here to announce I'm sorry. And I will be part of the group that will make America great again. And I will proudly vote Republican from now on. God bless. And again, I apologize for everything I've done.
What's up, family? I appreciate you pulling up. We got something real to talk about today. So hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let's get right into it because this one is powerful, as you can see. I mean, this is the kind of story you don't see every day. You got a woman, a grown woman, coming out in public and doing something most people never had the courage to do. A lot of men would say, and I'm not throwing no shade or, any type of grudges or backlash to my ladies, but a lot of men would say, oh, women don't know how to take accountability. Well, you seen she said it, even though it took her like 10 times to say the word right. And she's apologizing, not just apologizing for something small either. She's apologizing for 20 years of her life, 20 years of voting Democrat, 20 years of believing the left media, 20 years of calling her husband wrong when he was actually right the whole time. And family, hearing what she said in that clip, and it speaks for itself, and playing it, we're going to break down, look at it from different angles, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on what this actually means for us and where we are right now as a country. And don't take my word for it, family, as you heard it for yourself. She says, America, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I take full responsibility. And I'm partly responsible for what's happening in America, for what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, for what's happening in New York City. We left Iran. We left Islamic Republic for exactly this reason, because radical terrorists took over the country and are literally raping, torturing, and executing innocent people right now as we speak for the past 47 years. And I thought by voting Democrat, liberals every single year, every single time there was an election, that meant we're going to make America, we're going to make America, keep America great. And we're going to definitely not negotiate with terrorism. That's exactly what the left media made me believe. And I'm here to say I apologize. I was brainwashed this whole time. It took me over 20 years to realize that Democrats and liberals are the reason this country is the way it is. End quote. Let that sink in, family. I had to reiterate it. Let that really sink in. Here's a woman who fled Iran. She fled the Islamic Republic. She knows what happens when radical extremists take over a country. And she's not talking about something she read in a textbook. She's not quoting something she saw on social media. She lived it. Her family lived it. People she knew were raped, tortured, executed for 47 years. And she comes to America thinking the Democratic Party is the party that fights terrorism, that protects freedom, that stands up for American values. And it took her 20 years to realize she was sold a lie. Now think about what she's saying here. She's not saying she disagrees with Democrats on taxes. She's saying the party she voted for, the party she believed in, the party she thought was protecting America from the same kind of extremism, she escaped is actually okay with that same energy showing up here in America. And she's looking at what's happening in Dearborn and what's happening in New York City and what's happening in all the cities or sanctuary blue cities across this country. And she's connecting the dots that most people refuse to connect. And here's the thing. She acknowledges that she was brainwashed, and she admitted it, and she uses the word herself, brainwashed. That takes guts, family. That takes real humility. See, a lot of times we want to be angry, but we need to actually replace anger with humility. And most people will go to their graves defending a bad decision before they'll ever admit they were wrong. But this woman stood up and said, I was wrong for 20 years. Now, to be fair, I want to say this. There are plenty of people who vote Democrat for reasons they genuinely believe are good. They think they're helping the poor. They think they're protecting vulnerable people. They think they're standing up for what's right. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to think or how to think. But here's what I will say. When you look at what the Democratic Party has become, and when you look at what they tolerate, what they defend, and what they cheer for, you got to ask yourself if that lines up with what you actually believe. This woman watched the American flag be burned in New York City. She watched people wishing death upon America, Iran, and she realized the party she was supporting was fine with it, right? She says it in the clip. It's the most anti-American thing to do, and it has nothing to do with democracy. And she's right. You can't call yourself a patriot and be okay with people burning the American flag. You can't call yourself a patriot and be okay with people chanting death to America. And you can't call yourself a patriot and support policies that weaken this country from the inside. And here's where it gets deeper, family. She talks about her husband. This part hit me hard when I heard it because she's sitting there trying to get the words out and she's struggling. She says, I'm here to announce that my husband was right. And she has to force herself, bringing out another person within to force the truth. Because a lot of times in life, family, we may go through challenges, but sometimes you have to go within your inner self to bring out that personality within that you never had before, which through discomfort, we actually grow. But she said he was right about everything. The Republicans are the ones that are going to help make America great again. And I want you to think about what that means in real life. For 20 years, this woman's husband was probably sitting at the dinner table saying the same thing she's saying now. For 20 years, he was trying to tell her the truth. And for 20 years, she ignored him because the TV told her something different. The media told her something different. Her friends told her something different. And she had to go through 2 decades of disappointment, 2 decades of watching the country change, and 2 decades of watching her own city change before she finally admitted the man she married was right all along. How many families are going through this exact same thing right now? How many times have we seen when Kamala Harris was running against our president, President Trump, and she actually was supporting the division of families and not letting husband lead as husbands were actually more so right when it came to voting right and on being on the right side of history when it came to the polls. But she said, I don't care what your husband say. If you got to go and sneak into the poll yourself to vote different from your spouse, then do it. That was really what was being condoned. How many husbands, you know how many houses were broken up over this election to be on the right side of history to save our country? How many husbands are sitting there watching their wives vote against their own interests because the media told them the Republicans are racist? How many wives are sitting there frustrated with their husbands because they believe what they see on CNN instead of what they see with their own eyes? This is real, family. This is happening in homes across the country. It was happening, and it's still happening. And she admits something else that's really important. She says, I also believed that make America great again meant make America white again. That's because the left media wanted me to believe that. What's being portrayed in the mainstream media, liberal media, is the white man is the enemy, the villain, which again stirs up racism and division all over again. If you realize their tactic is to stir up, divide, conquer, and destroy. That's all they do. In the name of racism, in the name of success. If you pull yourself by your bootstraps and you make something out of yourself, you're not entitled to that. You should help others in regards of making sure they be able to afford and pay their rent, for example, in New York, where we are equal. So nobody can make more than the next person because we are equal. So if you make a certain amount of money, salary-wise, oh, that's not all entitled to you. Despite the hard work you put in, give it to somebody else who can afford to live in New York and stay to live in New York. So you're paying for somebody else to afford for somewhere they can't live, afford to live on their own. But your success is demonized. So you need to, in a form of government control, we're going to suppress you and take from you to give to others. And if you don't like that, we will crush you. not for advocating actually doing something and being a productive citizen in your communities and society and actually putting back into your economy within your state and showing the American dream, but crushing you for actually accomplishing in that because you are wrong to have the successes that you have. That's how far we gone, family. Now, when you stop right there, because she's telling you in this clip, in her own words, that the media lied to her. She's not guessing. She's not speculating. She's telling you directly that the left media intentionally fed her a narrative designed to make her afraid of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And she believed it. For 20 years, she believed it. And now she's sitting there, not standing, telling the world she was wrong. That's the power of propaganda, family. That's what it looks like when a media machine spends years conditioning people to believe something that it isn't true. On behalf of deceiving Americans, I believe these networks need to go. They told her Trump was a racist. They told her Republicans were white supremacists. They told her the Republican Party wanted to send her back where she came from. And none of it was true. None of it. But she believed it because she trusted the source. She trusted the media. She trusted the Democratic Party. CNN, their slogan, the most trusted name in news. Really? Really? It's not okay. And they used that trust to keep her voting against her own interests for 2 decades. Now, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about what this really means for where we are as a country. You got people waking up every single day, more and more of them. You see it on social media, you see it in the comments, you see it in the polls. People are leaving the Democratic Party in droves. And it's not just one type of person either. You got black voters leaving, Hispanic voters leaving, you got women leaving, you got working class people leaving, you got people who have been Democrats their whole lives. Like this woman waking up and realizing they were sold a bill of goods. And here's the reason why. The Democratic Party moved so far left that regular people can't keep up no more. They went from being the party of the working class to the party of the far left activists. They went from being the party of common sense to the party of defund the police, open borders, and whatever gender ideology is popular this week. And I'm all for be who you are, you know, and I'm not here to tell you what to do in your bedroom, but we should be able to respect all persons. You get what I'm saying? So regular people, normal people, hardworking people, though, looked at that and said, I didn't sign up for this. Speaking on behalf of the sentiment of what most of Americans have been saying. And if you think about it from an everyday perspective, if you've been voting for a party for 20 years because you thought they stood for something, and then you wake up one day and realize they actually stood for the exact opposite of what you believe, that's a gut punch. That's what this woman is going through. She thought she was voting for the party that would keep America safe from terrorism. Instead, she got a party that's okay with burning the American flag. She thought she was voting for the party that protects freedom. Instead, she got a party that silences dissent, cancels anybody who disagrees in the name of political violence, even to the point to execute. Because political violence is at its highest in history when it comes to politics, American politics, higher than it ever been, and pushes a woke agenda that makes no sense to normal people, as most Americans are saying. And she thought she was voting for the party that helps the working class. And instead, she got a party that's more concerned with illegal immigration and DEI training than making sure American citizens can afford to put food on the table. And here's what this actually looks like in real life. You got a woman who escaped the country by a religious extremist. She comes to America, the land of the free. She builds a life. She raises a family. She votes in every election because she believes in the process. And then slowly over time, she starts noticing that things don't add up. She sees her city changing. She sees crime going up. She sees the homeless population exploding. She sees the public schools teaching things she doesn't agree with. She sees politicians more interested in virtue signaling than actually solving problems. She sees the media lying to her face. And at some point, something clicks. And she realizes the people she trusted were the ones fooling her all along. That's not just her story, family. That's the story of millions of Americans right now and how they feel. Then I got to talk about something that might rub people the wrong way, right? This woman struggled to admit her husband was right. She physically struggled to get the words out. And I think that speaks to something bigger in our culture. For decades now, we've been told women don't need men. But in reality is we need each other. We've been told that independence means doing things on your own. So you would rather sit there and have the guts And wherefore to say, "Oh, I did it on my own." Let's say, for example, you wanted to run a lemonade stand. So you do it on your own and it takes longer because you don't know the ins and outs, the nooks and cronies of how the business works. But then you have someone willing to teach you the business of how to run a lemonade stand that can basically cut your time in half to have a successful lemonade stand. Would you do it? Or would you stand on the principle, "Oh, I did it all on my own. I'm big and bad all by myself. And I got it out the mud and nobody helped me." When you had somebody helping you the whole time. In the name of unity, we come together and stronger together and actually can thrive even more because two is greater than one. But we've been told that, for example, in marriages, that listening to your husband is somehow weak or submissive, right? Not even submissive, I should say, somehow weak, or in the name of submission, you're being controlled. Leading someone for that best interest, being able to see the bigger picture long term, because women have the tendency to be short-term thinkers more so because they're emotional more so. Men are more so that lead with the right characteristics, have the capacity to think long-term and the bigger picture, right? For example, a woman may see her little boy who's always her little boy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But she can love her son to the simple fact where she will break him if she coddle him so much. She will break him, right? But if she loves him just enough, she will make him because he'll have the confidence to go out there. So with a father, we say, okay, one day he's going to be a man. We don't see the little boy right then and there, but that's the balance, right? And unity and love. That's the beautiful part. So then when a young man or a young boy falls and the father said, come on, you can get up and do it. Come on, try it again. And then the mother be like, "No, no, it's okay. It's all done. You don't have to do it no more. You fail." But instead, she should be, "Come on, honey," and add and boost that confidence. Well, you could do it. Come on, do it again, buddy. Let's go. Unified home. Father giving him the mentality to have a stronger mindset, to put calluses in his brain to overcome and fight. The good fight, to understand that you're going to have challenges and obstacles in which the things that you say you want, you're going to be tested in life. But how bad do you want it? And mom gave the confidence out of love and affection to pour into that young man or young boy self-love, to love himself and speak to themselves in a positive way. You get where I'm going with this, family? Just using that example. But you got a generation of women who are more depressed, more anxious, more medicated than any generation before them. You got record levels of loneliness, record levels of unhappiness, record levels of regret. And a lot of that can be traced back to the feminist movement, as most Americans would say when I talk to them. People just in general out there, telling women that traditional values were oppressive. This woman had to swallow her pride and admit that the man she married, the man she chose to spend her life with, the man who probably sat there for 20 years trying to warn her was right. And that was hard for her. And I'm not saying that coming together and looking at different perspectives, that's actually the beauty, because the simple fact is, I was told by a man that when you realize, when you go out into the world, you are dumber than you actually believe. You are dumber than you actually think, because there's always something out there that you don't know. And that goes for marriages as too. Humble yourself in the name of humility for something you don't know for your person, and you come together at the table. And then the final understanding, and we're having clear understanding, the final verdict will come based on what's in the best interest of the decisions you guys make in unity. So there's nothing about excluding a woman, or well, you just shut up and listen. No, you actually come to the table and you actually draw closer. And actually, when a woman submits to understand, okay, that the man represents the family and is the individual who usually takes the full accountability for how the family operates, because you realize everything usually stops at with the man. Oh, how can he be having his family struggle like that? If we get so much backlash as men, that already tells you evidently that the buck stops with man when it comes to final accountability. But that doesn't have nothing to do with the woman just shutting up and listen. Her voice should be heard. If anything, most of the time when she submits, and that's just trusting with vulnerability that he have the best interest of the family. That's all submissive is. And being able to serve that person out of love, and he serves her. He actually lets her make most of the decision, because a house is not a home without a warm, soft woman around. But it takes a real woman to apologize to her husband in the public, is what I'm saying. It takes a real woman to say, I was brainwashed and I'm sorry. Most women would sit there and speak about the problems of social media with their relationship and bash them and speak, air out all their issues and destroy the family, in which, in the name of discernment, that's not taking place. Because how many times have you seen, probably family, where people just share everything, overshare with the internet? But here's the thing, family. This isn't just about one woman and her husband. This is about a pattern, as I'm saying. This is about millions of women who have been fed a lie that their entire adult lives. They've been told that the Democrat Party is the party of women's rights. They've been told that Republicans want to take away their freedoms. They've been told that Trump is a misogynist and a racist, and none of it lines up with reality. And when Trump is president, right? And was president his first term, and now he's president again. What happened to black unemployment? They hit record lows. What happened to opportunity zones? They brought investment to communities that had been left behind for decades. What happened to HBCUs? Trump secured permanent funding for them. What happened to the economy? It was the best economy in a generation before COVID hit. But you didn't hear any of that on CNN. You didn't hear any of that on MSNBC, now known as MS Now. The media was too busy calling them a racist and a threat to democracy and regular people, and people like this woman believed it because they trusted the source, right?
I can't believe you voted for Donald Trump. Why would you vote for Donald Trump? Maybe because the left is trying to destroy America and they literally tried to murder our president. Maybe because Kamala Harris's platform was the stupidest thing I've ever seen and I don't want all of our tax money going to that. Maybe because the amount of fraud in this country disgusts me and I work my butt off just to give 20% of it at least to the government. Maybe because I get called a terrorist for being a Christian in a free Christian nation, mind you. Maybe because the other side can't even say the Pledge of Allegiance. Maybe because me, as somebody in the working class, is paying for people who are not working. I'm tired of this woke garbage. Everybody keeps asking me what that means, and the basic definition of it is being politically correct, meaning you don't have a foundation to stand on, meaning your definition of what's right and wrong keeps changing. One day it's no kings, the next day it's LGBT, and the day after that the kids are in the strip club and we're calling it story hour. I voted for Donald Trump because I'm an American, I'm proud to be American, and we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to be voting for youth today. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I'm 72 years old, 72-year-old white male, and I've been a Democrat my whole life. This past primary in Ohio, I went and asked for the Republican ballot, which makes me a Republican now. There's many reasons for that, but if I could just be philosophical for just a minute, and thank you again for taking my call. This chicken, this Democratic Socialist movement, this chicken has been coming home to roost for a long, long time. And you have to go back to the source of what's going on. 35 or 40 years ago, the Democrats and Republicans together decided that they were going to shovel everything, every job that they could shovel offshore that they did. And the ones that weren't bolted down, they shipped first, and then they've unbolted the rest of them and shipped the rest of them. So if you're a young person in this country, we don't make any textiles. We don't make any electronics. We don't make hardly any cars. We don't make hardly any pharmaceuticals. And so you've got a lot of young people who are seeing this wage gap. And by the way, I'm a Republican, and you're seeing this income gap. And so essentially they're fair game for this movement. They see this movement as an opportunity, if not to gain back some credibility or some life, a better life. They look at it as a way to burn the system down.
Okay.
And
Jeffrey there in Kent, Ohio, Republican.
Wow, she just cut him off. Disrespectful. But yeah, I mean, speaking to, my elders and older individuals who lived a full life and living life, thankfully, and, being grateful to have, being able to sit down and talk with them and learn wisdom from back in the day, as they would call it. I think the strongest car I ever have seen and come across that I actually will want one day if I could get one is the Thunderbird. Right? They said that thing was full metal. I think it was American made. Correct me if I'm wrong, family. I'm always open to the possibility of being wrong, but yeah, it's unfortunate that we outsourced everything, and I always say it was the Clintons' fault. The Clintons, man, they sold off our factories and plants and outsourced everything in the name of cheap labor. and got rid of removed American jobs who were there for years. You know, back then, as I spoke to individuals, and like I said, my elders, they would say that the dream was to work at the Ford plant or whatever auto manufacturing plant and just work there to retire, because back then that used to be the way. That used to be the opportunity for the working class. That used to be the goal, right? Pension, retirement, take care of your family, work hard, and being able to work your way up at the plant, you know?
And Manu.
Thank you. Is the rise of the DSA good for your party?
Look, we are a big tent party, and being a big tent party is a strength, not a weakness.
The Democrat Party has totally capitulated to the communists within their ranks. Communism has never worked, and it's very scary that a major political party in this country, the Democrat Party, is being controlled by communists. And their only real answer to any problem is to just take more from the individuals who make that country great and give it to the government. You know, it sounds great to have free food, free healthcare, free rent, but who's paying for all of that? We are. You will be. It's easy to sell, but it doesn't work. And I think, unfortunately, so many people in this country are falling for it because of our liberal, biased education system. We live in the best country in the history of the world. That's what our children should be taught. That's why so many people from all over this world are dying to come here, literally traveling from all over the world because they believe in the promise of the American dream that was built on capitalism, on the free market, on small business enterprise, and all of that will go away if we turn into a communist state. History tells us so.
Leftist violence, you have to understand this is not something new. This is not something that's randomly happening. It happened in China, it happened in Vietnam, it happened in Cuba, which I'm Cuban. So every single time the leftists take over, what do they want? Revolution. To what? Break down the status quo. How do they do that? Not through peace, they do it through revolution. Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Stalin. Every single time, that's how they do it. And you know who they use? All of you. They use the university students. They use leftists. The authoritarians, the strongmen, convinced the leftists to fight for them. It happened in Iran where the Ayatollah took over. It happened in Cuba with Castro. They get the leftists to disrupt and cause destabilization. Once they take power, they get rid of all of the leftists that help them get in power. Mao Zedong created the Red Guard. When he got in power, he said, all universities canceled. I want you to get my book. It's called The Little Red Book. Put it in your pocket and go around. And if any teacher has spoken out against me, I want you to tell the communist commissar we're going to arrest him and kill them. They did that. The army didn't step in. They allowed the protesters and the revolutionaries to do what they want. You know what Mao did after he got power? He said, I don't need any more destabilization. He sent them out into the fields to work, and 9 million of them died. That's what he's done. The Shah did it, the same thing to the leftists. The leftists are always, we call them the useful idiots. Not all of them, but the ones who are revolutionary. They are used to destabilize, to go after the young people in universities every single time, hundreds and hundreds of years. This is the same thing happening over again. This is not new. What you're experiencing is not new. It's just new to you. It's new to our age.
Interesting. But this is where the bigger conversation comes in, right, family? We're just having a conversation. Because when you look at how this plays out over time, you start to see the pattern that's been repeating itself for 100 years. The same playbook, the same tactics, the same manipulation, just different names and different faces. You got leftist movements that target young people, right? They get into the schools, they get into the universities, as he's saying from this perspective that I'm speaking on and speaking to, and basically speaking to what he just said. And they teach young people to they teach young people to distrust authority or to distrust their parents, to distrust traditional values, and they convince them that the system is broken and needs to be torn down. It's mostly like saying basically a kid having a tantrum and they don't have to listen to nobody or respect authority, and they can do what they want when they want, right? Metaphorically, that's what it sounds like. And they say history repeats itself, but then they use those young people to create chaos and instability. As you heard, it happened in Russia, China, it happened in Cuba, Iran, all over the world, and now it's happening here in the United States, as he says. And you see symptoms and signs of it in the name of politicians that most Americans would say within these socialists in the name of communism ideologies being pushed. And the only difference is the language they use. Instead of calling it communism, they call it progressivism. Sorry, family. Instead of calling it revolution, they call it social justice. But the goal is the same: break down existing structures, weaken the institutions, basically remove what the founding fathers have put in place, such as separation of powers, so there can be no government control, also checks and balances, because in our human nature, we are flawed to want more and be greedy. We can be, and it's a temptation that be there when you give you hand over too much power to any human being, right? But make people dependent on the government and then take control. And now, when you look at it, right, it goes back to with the woman in the clip, the first clip I played. That's why she was apologizing and she was so emotional. She recognized the signs in her eyes. She's seen the patterns play out at Dearborn, New York, and cities all across America, and she's begging people to wake up before it's too late. And that's the real message here. That's the takeaway. Not that Democrats are bad or Republicans are good. That's too simple. The real takeaway is that propaganda works. They usually say if you tell a lie long enough, people will start to believe it. But the real takeaway is that the media can make you believe anything if you don't question it and have a productive conversation. Always realize how when you speak the truth, that it always stirs up chaos or problems instead of actually speaking to the truth for solutions. Because they never wanted the truth, because the truth would expose the propaganda. The real takeaway is that you need to think for yourself. That's all I'm saying. You need to look at what actually is happening in your community, in your city, in your country, and ask yourself whether the people in power are actually helping or hurting. And I'm going to close out this out with something important, family. This woman said that stuck with me. She said, I was brainwashed the whole time. And that's a heavy thing to admit. But the truth is, a lot of us were. A lot of us believe things we were told without verifying them. We all have moments and have times where we're naive, right? And we come to understand later on why it played out the way it played out. But a lot of us trusted institutions that didn't have our best interests at heart. Shoot, even loved ones we may have trusted that may have deceived us, or friends or backstabbers. I know you guys may have been there from your own anecdotal experiences, but a lot of us voted for people who were actively working against the things we claim to believe in. Right? And waking up from that is painful. It's embarrassing. It makes you feel stupid. I've been there, making it feel stupid, just thinking I thought something was right the whole time and it wasn't. But it's also the first step to freedom. This woman is free now. She's free from the lies. She's free from the manipulation. She's free from the mind prison that kept her voting against her own interests for 2 decades. And that's what I want everybody watching this video to do. I want you to question everything. I want you to verify what you're being told. I want you to look at the results instead of the rhetoric. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party you belong to. What matters is whether the policies being implemented are actually making your life better, making your community safer, and making your country stronger. And I'm going to leave you with some scripture that ties into all of this. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 15, the simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps. And that's exactly what we're talking about here, family. The simple person, the person who don't question, the person who just believes what they're told, they end up getting fooled. They end up 20 years down the road apologizing for the damage they helped cause. But the prudent person, the person who thinks before they act, the person who examines the evidence, the person who questions the narrative, the person who walks in wisdom, that person doesn't get caught up in the hype. That person doesn't fall for propaganda. This woman admits she was simple. She admits she believed anything, but now she's giving thoughts to her steps. She's waking up, and that's what we all need to do. And for my family who aren't scripture, scripturally or spiritually inclined, I should say, into scripture, here's the life wisdom, right? Not everybody who tells you they care about you actually care about you. Not everybody who says they're fighting for you is actually fighting for you, right? You got to look at the results. You got to look at track records. What they say, women lie, men lie, numbers don't. You got to look at what actually happens when the policies get implemented, because it's real easy to make promises. It's real easy to say the right things, but the proof is in the pudding. This woman spent 20 years believing the promises, and it took her 2 decades to realize she was being used. Don't let that be you. Question everything, verify everything, and don't be afraid to admit when you're wrong, because we fell our way forward. Through failure, we found out plenty other ways why it didn't work, to learn the wisdom of what we need to fix so we can do the right thing and making sure that the results speak for itself. That does work, because that's the truth. But the truth will set you free, but only if you're willing to accept it. So let me ask you, family, do you think more people are waking up like this woman did? Do you think more people are waking up like this woman did? Do you think the Democratic Party is losing voters every single day? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications so you never miss an upload. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.